Hey everyone, Coach Lori here, and welcome to Conversations with Courageous Cancer Warriors. I'm really excited about our next guest. She lives by the powerful beyond measure quote, and I absolutely adore everything that she stands for. She is a registered dietitian, a stage 1 ovarian cancer warrior, and is a certified Primal Health Coach. Please welcome Miss Martha Tettenborn. Martha, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's so wonderful to talk to your people.
I have so many questions. And first and foremost, tell us a little bit about your cancer journey and how you got to where you are today.
Okay, well, I have been a dietitian for 35 years, and I trained during the time of the low-fat. It was cutting-edge science when I went to university. And I have tried to be really healthy. I mean, I went into a health field because I wanted to help people. And, but over time I have moved from a low fat to a low carbohydrate approach, very evidence-based and not only my personal experience, but the science and the fact that I wasn't really helping people. But I've always considered myself really healthy. And about 2 years ago, I suddenly discovered the presence of a very large ovarian cyst, about 16 centimeters when it first got diagnosed. So that's, what is that, about 6 inches? And it was just a big fluid-filled cyst. So nobody expected cancer. I had it removed at my local hospital. In a rather leisurely fashion. There was about 2 months between when they found it and when I had it taken out. And I had it taken out laparoscopically, ruptured inside me because it was too big to encapsulate. And 6 days later, they called me and said, you need to come in and talk to us. And of course, I work in healthcare. I knew exactly what that meant. And they discovered that it was cancer. So then I continued down that path. I met with an oncologist and decided that it made sense to do chemotherapy. And at that point, I took a deep dive into the research because I'm a bit of a health nerd anyways, and discovered...
Which we love here, by the way. We love that here, so thank you.
Awesome. And discovered cancer metabolism. And like, as a dietitian, I didn't know that this existed, which was freaking amazing. And that's what started me down the path of using nutrition interventions to really impact my cancer journey. And from that point, I had people kind of say, you know, you should try and get this. I wanted to get the word out. People say you should try and get the word out. I started a blog to blog my cancer journey. And from that, the book developed. And so now I have published a book to try and get this word out that there is there's a way to impact your cancer journey using nutrition, which is just amazing. And it was wonderful for me. I did 6 rounds of chemotherapy, paclitaxel and carboplatin, so traditional chemotherapy for ovarian cancer, as a preventative mainly. The cancer was gone out of my body before I knew that I had it. So I never had to sit with a tumor inside my body that I knew was there. I did not have that experience. So I just say that because I've talked to people since who have had, you know, they find out that it's there and then they have to sit with it in them.
Especially now, right? Especially now with what we're going through in the world. You know, there's so many people who are electing not to have their surgeries because of what's happening. So they just patiently wait. Yeah, and that's a really hard place to be. Now, this book that you're referring to, I absolutely love. I am so excited to be able to have a copy. So it's Hacking Chemo, and you have pretty much did an amazing job on using the ketogenic diet, therapeutic fasting, which I am a firm believer, and overall just positive attitude in order to get yourself through your cancer journey. So how did this come about? Because this book is amazing. Everybody who is listening, if you want a book that's just, it covers everything. All the nuts and bolts are in here. And I was just like, every time I turned the page, I'm like, that's amazing. That's amazing. So kudos to you, because it's really something that I feel people can benefit from. But like, did this come from your blogs, or how did you come up with writing this book?
I started with the blog, and then I had people who say, your writing is really good. You should think about a book. And I knew that when I was diagnosed, I went looking for other people's stories. And I struggled to find stories that were really relatable to me as a postmenopausal woman with early stage ovarian cancer. Now, 75% of people diagnosed with ovarian cancer are diagnosed at late stage, 3 or 4. They call it the cancer that whispers. Because it's, I didn't know it was there until this thing was the size of a quart of milk. I didn't find it till I lay down on the floor. That's when I discovered I had it. It's that's the first chapter of the book. But I wrote it because I was almost angry about the fact that nobody knew about this stuff. I mean, I'm a dietitian. I've been and a health nerd and someone who was into low carb. And yet the way that traditional Western medicine deals with cancer, particularly in terms of dietetics, is you just help people to get enough food in that they don't lose weight while they're having treatment. And you use whatever works. So, I mean, we used to use what they used to call the high energy, high protein diet, which was sugar in any form you could get it into them, fats in any form you could get it into them, so that the diet was very calorie dense and small amounts would be enough to keep you from losing weight, and then working around the side effects. But with what I learned, you could actually impact on whether you had side effects by what you chose to do nutritionally. And so the book came out of a desire to get that message out to more people, also to share my story, because the internet, particularly YouTube and stuff, and a lot of social media, tends to be a place where younger people are more comfortable. And so there weren't as many stories of people my age going through. And, so I'd YouTube, I'd Google my, ovarian cancer story or my cancer story or whatever. And many of them were young people. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but, it's kind of,
it's a sign of the times, right?
Yes. It's a sign of your comfort level, because you grew up with the internet, whereas my generation didn't so much, right? So we're a little behind the 8 ball that way. So the book is partly my story, because I knew how much I wanted to kind of hear people's stories. It's what I learned about the science and the powerful interventions, and how I could actually impact what I was feeling and what the cancer experienced, like whether it was encouraged to grow or not, through what I did nutritionally. And then the whole spiritual attitude sort of aspect of it, because I really, really deeply believe that your health is intricately linked to your emotional and mental well-being and your connection to spirit, however that is described in your world, your life experience.
Yeah, definitely. Now, you had mentioned that you had did you have a family history of ovarian cancer? Or
not ovarian.
Your mom had gone
breast
your
cancer.
Mom had gone through something. Yeah.
Yes.
And they're linked, right? Like, so
yeah, she was an outlier, like, though. I never considered myself to be at risk for cancer, despite my mom having premenopausal breast cancer. My mom had polio when she was 7 years old, and so she was disabled and didn't start making babies until her late 30s, which we know is a risk factor for breast cancer. She has aunts, mom, siblings, cousins, all of whom have not had cancer. There is almost no cancer in my family tree, my extended family tree, with the exception of my mom. And she was a teenage girl, a youngster and a teenage girl, going through polio treatment and surgeries on her back and all kinds of stuff in the 1930s and 40s. Like, who knows what they did back then, right?
Oh, that's terrible.
So she had a one of those surgeries they called the radical mastectomy, where you had the huge incision that went from your navel right up into your armpit, and everything was ripped up. She had that when I was 9 years old, and she lived another 10 years and died just before I turned 19. So,
yeah, I mean, it speaks to, thank goodness for medical advancement, right? Having gone through bilateral mastectomies myself, I know how not fun the recovery is. And so to think about what she went through with such a aggressive, traumatic, even more traumatic procedure, I couldn't even, I can't even be with it, to be honest with you. So she is definitely a warrior, and she's definitely somebody who, because of her, so many of us really did not have to go through that.
Yes,
right?
and
she really is a pioneer.
Yeah, she taught me about attitude and spirit and gratitude and positivity and faith and all those things. So, yeah.
And one of the things we focus on is, like, what, we all go through our struggle. We all go through something, right? Everybody that's listening right now is either has been affected by a chronic illness or has someone else in their life, right? So what did you do, and what does she instill in you to keep that positive mindset through your trauma?
Well, I mean, she's the reason I have the faith that I do. She was given another 10 years after that radical mastectomy to, during which time she raised us. I mean, my brother and I would say I was 9, he was 7. And so she was given that time. And so she was raised by a farm family in a rural area of, like, not Northern Ontario, but pretty close. And, I think if she had been raised by maybe a more educated urban family or something, her path might have been different. But her family instilled in her strength and resilience and a very strong faith. And that is what she has passed on to me. So when I started down this path, those are the skills and resources that I pulled up from it within myself as well, right? So
yeah, definitely. And those are the ones that bring you home, right? Those are the ones that you lean into. Like, without those, I truly believe the journey is that much more difficult.
Oh, you would feel so alone.
Yeah. And your mindset is everything as to how you can, whether it's from changing your diet to just handling, the crisis that you're handling, it's really all about mindset. So you want to tell us a little bit about what you provide to your clients? Like, what does it look like? Do you set them up with, meal plans? Like, how does that work? Because you provide one-on-one coaching, correct?
I'm starting to do that. As a dietitian, I still work in long-term care. That's my day job.
Yeah.
I work in several different nursing homes. And
thank you.
Oh,
thank you for doing that, because we need you. That's amazing.
Yeah. And I love working with the elderly. They're fabulous.
They're so great. My friends kind of make fun of me, because no matter what, whenever there is someone that is above the age of, whatever, 60 or whatever, I literally will gravitate. You could give me a room full of teenagers, or give me a room full of just people who have lived, and I always go for the seasoned people. And I just love to hear their experience, and I love to hear about what they've learned and everything, just about their lives. I think it's so fascinating. So thank you for taking care of them.
Oh,
really.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I've only done I've only really gotten started with the cancer coaching thing. I've had a private practice, but you know, it was one-on-one. It was kind of what I knew. This whole virtual world is something different. And
Yeah.
I am a registered dietitian, which means I have a license and a legislated college of dietetics that, you know, provides my license and so on. So there are limitations to where I can practice as a dietitian. So the cancer coaching is kind of outside that role as a registered dietitian. It is something that I do more just as a life coach sort of role. And I make that very clear to people when they reach out to me, because I don't have the jurisdiction to practice in the United States. I don't have the jurisdiction to practice in other provinces. I mean, I could get it. I'd have to go and pay for a licensing fee in all those places. And so what I do with people really is, it depends where they start. I've had clients who already follow like a primal lifestyle, you know, where they're already eating low carb and they understand processed and unprocessed foods and food quality and stuff. And then I have other people who really, they come to me and say, well, I've started looking at this keto stuff and I've cut out all the sugar. And so that person's starting from a very different place. And one of the things that dietitians do very well is they meet people where they are and help them make changes that are within their scope and within their ability. I mean, if you're someone whose, you know, lifestyle precludes you eating grass-fed, organic, blah, blah, blah stuff, then, okay, how are we going to improve the quality of your life using what you can buy at your local Walmart? You know, like we have to find ways around that. You know, I live in farming country. I can go to a farmer's gate and get, you know, food and talk to the farmer. But someone living in an inner city can't do that. So everybody has to be at a different place. And then I stick with that person and talk them through their chemo. So we stay in touch every couple of weeks and we talk about where they're at and give them that fasting protocol, that actual fasting. We haven't really talked about that yet, but that will help you get through your actual chemotherapy sessions, like the actual drugs. When they put that poison into your bloodstream, there are things that you can do to make your side effects less by protecting your body using fasting.
Okay. And is there a certain, so I do intermittent fasting. It's something that I've done for a really long time. For me, it works, right? And it doesn't always work for everyone, but for me, it definitely works. And I try to, you know, maintain at least 12 to 15 hours between I eat. And what would that look like for someone? Like, would you want to give us an example of what that would look like for someone who is going through chemo? Like, if you were, you know, when you were going through it and you discovered all of this, what were some of the tips and tricks that you had found that worked for you?
What I did a lot of research, and there has been a lot of research on this, on the actual role of fasting in chemotherapy. It does not do anything negative to the effectiveness of chemotherapy. Absolutely doesn't. In fact, it potentiates the chemotherapy is what they feel.
Great.
But what it does is it protects your healthy cells. Okay, so it does that in a specific way. When we fast, when we don't eat, our body slows down the metabolism to just what's required. So we quiet, or our cells become quiescent. I call it stealth mode. They go into stealth mode. And that's a great place to be when chemotherapy is administered, because chemotherapy drugs, for the most part, the traditional ones, are a really blunt instrument. They are put into your system and they look for fast metabolizing cells. And that's because cancer has no off switch. They have no way to downregulate, right? So they're always hungry. They're always looking for food, and they're always metabolizing and growing. So the chemotherapy is targeted to fast growing cells. Now, in an adult, we don't have a lot of cells that are fast growing, with the exception of hair. Our bone marrow, and generally the lining of our digestive tracts are pretty quick turning over. So those are the parts of our body that really get slammed by chemotherapy. So if you can quiet down the cellular activity, then number one, the cancer cells sort of show up with red lights on them going, here I am, come and get me. But your regular cells get bypassed by the chemo.
Yeah, that makes sense as to why you wouldn't have as much symptoms, right?
That's exactly. I mean, like GI wise, I didn't have hardly any. Really, I had minimal nausea. I never vomited. I never missed a meal. I mean, that's 6 sessions of carbo and Taxol, right? In fact, I never missed making a meal. I could get up out of my, I had very low energy for a couple of days after every treatment. It's not, this is magic, but I mean, I could get up and go in the kitchen and make my husband and I bacon and eggs or something, like sometimes it was very simple, but that was something that I could continue to do and something that mattered to me to be able to do that. So for me, and what I put in the book, what I call the chemo fasting protocol, which I just had to give it a fancy name, but basically I would stop eating 36 hours before the start of my chemo. So my chemos were on Thursday. I would stop eating Tuesday night. And it's not a water fast. I used coffee, tea, water or soda water, mineral water if I wanted. I didn't use anything artificially sweetened. And bone broth. I would use about 3 cups of bone broth, 3 to 4 cups over the 72 hours of the fast. So in my case, I would go from Tuesday night. I would fast, I eat supper Tuesday night, fast all day Wednesday with the support of coffee and bone broth. Thursday morning was chemo. And while you're in the chemo suite, you just kind of, you don't feel like eating. And then Friday, I would start eating again at supper on Friday night. So that's 24 hours after the end of my chemo.
Okay.
And so that 72 hours
incredible.
Sets you up for slowing down your cells. And then the 24 hours after chemo kind of keeps them quiet while that first wave of the chemotherapy is going through your system. There was days when it almost felt like I was giving something up. Some protection or something I was giving up when I started eating again on Friday nights. It's almost like, oh, do I want to? No, I don't, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, because standing in the science, you're like trying to expand that time out as long as you can, right? But then, then you go to the other side of it. Well, we need to eat to survive too. So I find it absolutely fascinating, and it amazes me that there's not more of this conversation in everyday conversation, right? Like this topic just doesn't come up routinely, and it's so important. And I really think you nailed it with what your approach is, right? And that's why I absolutely love this book. Like everybody needs, I'm going to put the link on in the bio for this session. And it's so important, absolutely important. Now you, so you're, a health professional, you're now an author, you are coaching, you have so much going on. And you have the gift of what your mom gave you of instilling that positive mindset through your belief system. What else would you say to somebody who's going through this journey that might be struggling? Like, what would be a piece of advice that you would give them?
And it goes back to that powerful beyond measure. You need to understand that you are not a hapless victim in this, and that you have the power to make decisions for yourself. You have the power to take the time to make decisions for yourself. Cancer didn't show up in a day. It's not going to change between today and next week. I know that, and I've heard this, in the American system in particular, you can get diagnosed in the morning and be in surgery by the afternoon, or in chemo or something by the afternoon. And it's like, that's not necessary. One thing about socialized medicine in Canada is that you kind of have to wait sometimes for things to happen because there's just so much of it, right? And so, I mean, I had some lag times there, but I also had my oncologist say, like, you have time to make these decisions. You know,
Yeah.
it's not like your cancer is going to like explode in the next week or a couple of weeks. You can take the time to make these decisions. You know, not forever, obviously, but you have the power, right? So the powerful beyond measure was, it came from a Marianne Williamson quote, which I have in the front of my book, that says, sometimes our greatest fear is not that we're powerless, but that we are powerful beyond measure. Because when you have that power, and you know you have that power, then you're obligated to do something with it, right?
Right.
And so many people feel, especially if they don't have any kind of a medical background, it's like, well, my oncologist said I have to do this, so I'm just tell me what to do and I'll do it. But there's so much more to it than that. And I guess that's kind of what I wanted to get across to people. And that's why the blog and the web, originally thought the book was going to be called Powerful Beyond Measure, but the smart people who are coaching me through writing a book helped me to find a better title. But
the title is amazing. I have to say, I absolutely love it. I love the cover. I think it's a really well designed book for sure.
Thank you. And I give all of the credit to, I don't give all the credit, but most of the credit I can give to book launchers, the people who are coaching me through self-publishing. They are an amazing group. And they helped with, they literally came to me, again, it's that control thing. They came to me and said, how stuck are you on your title? Would you be willing to consider some guidance around a title? And I'm like, hey, I'm paying you guys the big bucks to be my coaches. Yes, talk to me. And that was where the process started. They came up with some ideas. I farmed them out to what I called my brain trust, which is my group of friends and family, and said, what do you think of all of these titles? Give me your 1, 2, 3s, and which one's a dud, and it was my son and his wife, bless their hearts, who took my list of titles, went to the off-leash dog park and talked about my book for an hour and a half while they walked their dogs. And she's a writer, my daughter-in-law, and they helped me to see what the title really had to say.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. It's a family affair book. I absolutely love that.
It totally is.
And you just demonstrated the key point that we talk about a lot here. It's like, you need community. Community is always there to lean on and to support you. And we can't do this alone, right? This is something so big that you need to find a nutritionist. You need to find a coach. You need to find people that are there to support you. So I think that's an amazing way to end our session
in the end, you have power. You are not, you're being upheld by everybody else, but in the end, it's your journey, right?
Yeah, definitely. So, and you get to choose, right? We always talk about, make a powerful choice, get all the facts, and then you decide what you want to do. And what might work for one person may not work for somebody else, right? And so I think that is, thank you for having that come to light again, because I think it's something very important that people need to hear. So how can people find you?
Well, my website is just my name, marthatettenborn.com. The blog is there. There's recipes. There's things that are part of my story. There's some of the research. There's stuff about the book and so on. And there's also information there for linking to the book links. On Facebook, my Facebook page is called Powerful Beyond Measure. I do have my name, Martha Tettenborn, up on Instagram, but I must admit I don't do anything on Instagram. And then the book, Hacking Chemo, is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Chapters Indigo in Canada, a bunch of independent bookstores. It's both an ebook and a paperback. It is not an Audible book yet. Might be someday, but we'll see how that goes. So yeah, but the website's probably the main place, and links to my email for contacting me are on the website as well.
That's so great. Now, if you had the opportunity to narrate your own book, would you do it?
I think, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a fairly significant financial outlay, even if you're reading your own book.
Mm-hmm.
But there are also people who will read for you. Again,
Yeah.
Book Launchers has sort of got links in that direction. So I might.
I love it.
I'm a huge consumer of Audible books myself.
Me
So
too. I live by
yeah,
them.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's why you just made me think for the first time. I'm like, if I was in your shoes, would I want to be the person to do it, or would I get someone else? Right. And then I'm like, I wonder who I would choose. Literally, that's where my brain went. Like, how fun could it be if like Meryl Streep read your book, right? Like I kind of went down that road.
depends how
And
much
that's why
money you
I
want to
asked you that
spend.
question. Right. But I think it's amazing. I think the fact that you have that as a possibility is just fantastic. And I'm just very proud and very honored that you took the time to be here with us today. Thank you for coming on and sharing your story.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate being able to talk to you and talk to your people and just share the news that there's things we can do.
And the other thing too, before we go, so the book, we'll definitely make sure that the links for all of this is available. But there's also a Udemy course, right, that you have for people where it talks just about that. It's just everything that we talked about, the ketogenic diet and therapeutic fasting for cancer treatment. So that's also available on her website as well. So thank you again for being here, and definitely keep us posted. Let us know how your book is going, and we'd love to hear back from you for sure.
Thank you. And just one more thing, if you read the book, the best gift you could ever give an author is to review the book. Either just a number of stars or put a few lines on Amazon or Barnes & Noble or wherever you've bought it. That's for any book you read. I am discovering that is the best gift you can give an author is to put up a review.
Yeah. I love that. And I will definitely make sure that I do that too. So thank you so much. And thank you again for being here.
All right. Bye.